Good morning.
Hello.
Welcome to Easier Habits Live, your favorite 8 a.m. Central Business live stream. I'm Alec from Easier Habits.
And I am Meg. I'm a global English communication coach.
So we will be talking a little bit about what it's like not only to set goals and achieve them for one day, but what the process of maintaining those goals looks like. Because it's one thing to, power through a day when you're excited to do it. As you get into days 2, 3, and 4, you have to figure out how to keep up that pace.
It's exhausting.
All right, so we'll get into that after the communication tip.
All right, our communication tip. So it's one of the things that, we experienced with our older son over the break and coming back to school. But part of it, he was really worried about people bringing up this thing that he was a little embarrassed about. And we've all had those experiences where we've done something and we ruminate on it a lot. And we worry like, oh my goodness, this is going to affect our entire relationship and everything's going to be bad. And you always have that kind of in your frame of mind when you meet with those people who were involved. But really, when it comes down to it, people are not paying attention to you as much as you think they are because everyone is so worried about themselves. And the ones who are paying attention to you that much are either particularly vindictive or they really like you or something like that. And they're probably willing to overlook any of the mistakes that you might be making. So
right. If they're paying that much attention to you, there's probably not a lot you could do to actually change their opinion either way, right?
Exactly.
They're either really supportive or they're a bully.
Yep, exactly. And so it's one thing to say, well, just don't worry about it because people aren't thinking, I can't tell you that and you just believe me. It's something that I had to come to kind of an understanding of myself. Right? That these things that I notice about myself when I look in the mirror or when I have, embarrassing things happen, other people, it's not even on their radar. They're not even thinking about that. And so maybe, as a step, right? Ask someone who you feel safe with, right? What their very honest impression of you is in a particular interaction, right? It's a really easy way to say, well, like what do you notice about my facial expressions or the way that I was speaking in this particular exchange. And I bet you the things that they point out to you are going to be different from the things that you're thinking about. I know there's certain things I'm thinking about right now that I'm sure none of you care about, right? And it's good to figure out what is getting noticed so that you can focus on that rather than worrying about all of this other stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah, as an interesting example, I noticed in high school, it's an awkward time. Lots of people are breaking out. They have zits. And I remember noticing that there is someone who was, pretty frequently had a zit on their face. But when I thought of them, I didn't think of them with zits.
Yeah.
Which was interesting because they changed around, they moved around or whatever. And like my mind, like, even though I'm sure that probably bothered them. And when I had acne, it really bothered me.
Right? You're so super embarrassed. Like, you don't look at my face.
Right. But like my mental image of that person did not include them, which, that was fascinating to me. I'm like, I can worry a lot less about these things.
Right? Well, and even like I look at your face every day and we're like really close up. And it really wasn't until like literally 2 days ago when I started to be like, wow, you've got some wrinkles that weren't there when we got married.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've been there for a while.
Yep.
And they hadn't registered in my mind, really. I'll notice, a few new gray hairs here and there, which make you look great. But I just never noticed that, And so, me where I have like, oh, I've got this one here and these ones are getting deeper and I worry about that so much. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe it's not such a big deal.
Yeah, my mental picture of you does not include wrinkles either.
Yes.
Except for your dimples.
And I've had those since like birth.
Yeah. So I think that's like one side of the coin. All the things you worry about for yourself, other people just aren't even paying attention to for the most part. Another interesting one that I was listening to some speakers on, and I think they intentionally did this. This was like a filming of, I don't know, some conference or whatever. And the speakers were in like ripped jeans, like old t-shirts, well-worn like faded t-shirts, and like bed hair. They were speaking in that. And they were talking about how like people, especially when you go to like conferences, networking stuff, they're not going there to find somebody to like nitpick or bash. They're going there to have positive experiences, to grow their network, to etc. And so it's not just that people are don't care about the bad things, they're ignoring them. They're actually actively hoping you will provide them with a good experience. They want to create that good experience with you.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they were saying you mentally frame an event as it's almost a competition. You have to you have to prove to people that you are good, and really it's more of like a collaboration. They want a good experience. If you give them opportunities to create a good experience, then they will create that with you. And so that mindset really helps me remember when I get so self-conscious about all sorts of things. Like, I'm not a perfect person as a coach, and that's one thing I'm really trying not to be, actually. Is like, I'm not trying to set myself up as an expert or someone who needs to look like the smartest person in the room. Like, I just need to know how to help people very specifically with like engineering teams at startups, and more generally with productivity and habits, which are things I'm very familiar with. I've been through the process. I've helped people repeatedly, reliably, but I don't have to know everything. I can show this series in which I am not good at marketing and document the process of learning that, right?
And that can be hugely valuable, and maybe even more so to, than someone who is a perfect expert and doesn't really know all of the kind of struggles, the day-to-day stuff.
So it's not about proving I'm smart in all ways and a thought leader in everything. It's more about collaborating with people to create that positive experience. Speaking of which, our goal is to create a community of entrepreneurs. So if you're watching this video and you are able to be live with us at 8 a.m. Central, come join us. I don't see anything in the chat right now, but like, subscribe, and throw a hello in the chat. We have gotten them before. This is still a relatively new live stream, but that's
you can always just put us on in the background. We're like radio, right?
Nice.
While you're getting ready for work or whatever.
At some point I'm going to podcast this, but I would love to also be able to give you a shout out at the minimum if you throw a comment in there in the chat while we're live, or even better, answer questions, give you a little bit of support. That is our goal for this live stream. All right, so moving on from the communication tip. So what is it like the second day of going for 50 contacts?
It's a lot harder. I did not get 50 yesterday. And there's a few reasons why. And so it's kind of the combination of I'd had this really, good idea for my next kind of piece of content that was going to be a little bit, not super intensive to make, but it was going to take some time just to gather everything and then make it look quasi-decent, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but something that looks presentable. And so I was working on that for a fair amount of yesterday, as well as just kind of hitting a wall mentally after all of that outreach. Like, I do. Like, I am an introvert by nature. I get exhausted by human interaction as much as I love it. And it really is fun. There is that part of me that just needs to like take a step away from the people. And it'll start to like really affect my just mental ability to focus and function. I don't know. And so I was still able to get probably like 35 sent out yesterday, which was good. Some of them were obviously like not unique brand new ones. Some of them were ones that I'd done the previous days.
Sure. I mean, especially in Twitter or feeds that go really fast.
Right.
You can recycle, especially key pieces of content that you put a lot of thought into.
Yeah. But it was definitely a lot harder to keep that focus for 2 days running because it wasn't as novel. It wasn't as like, ooh, yay. And, I started thinking about all of the other things that I needed to do as well, right? Because there's so many things on that list right now that I'm really trying to like brute force, up front so that I can get some momentum.
Yep.
Right. And I'm willing to put in that work. And it's exhausting. So, it's kind of dealing with all of that at the same time.
Well, and specifically for something like, if you're a writer writing 100 sentences or something like that, right? It's probably actually not that much or not that difficult. But with something like contacts, it's especially where it's like it's not just on your own, it's reaching out to other people, and you're going to need new people. You don't just need 50 ways to get your message out there.
Yeah.
To be able to hit 50 reliably, you might need 250 ways, right? So that you can cycle through them.
Yeah, well, and when it's asynchronous as well, right? Or there's a combination of synchronous and asynchronous, like people are messaging me and then I'm messaging somebody else and then I'm actually talking live with somebody and then someone messages me and I have to remember to respond to them later, and then there's another thing that's completely not related that comes up and it's like,
So... yeah, I mean, messaging people in real time does have a power. On the other hand, right, if this is preventably, or like this is preventing you from getting the momentum you need, have you been able to like time box, like actually schedule times, like this is when I respond, where I'm live on the messenger, and if someone messages me in between, I'll get them to my second session that day.
I didn't really think about that yesterday. I think I was, I time boxed like messaging right up front, and then I time boxed my content work, and then it was pretty much in the afternoon. It was a free for all on my attention.
Right.
I had the walls came down. It's whatever was there. So I was like, oh, this thing, that thing, this thing, and any rational decision making went out the window.
Sure. Well, so what could we do differently so that's not so chaotic?
That's a good question.
Allow you to take breaks.
Yeah. I think part of it is just having experienced that yesterday is good. I did wake up at 1:30 this morning. So I'm super frazzled at the moment, if you can't tell.
Maybe instead of our 12 a.m. Walk, we need 12 a.m. naps.
Or 12 a.m. like meditation time.
12 p.m. Sorry.
Or what? Yeah, 12 p.m. Like, the weather's been so nice and I just want to be outside. So there's that call when yesterday was perfect. It was like 73 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like 22 degrees Celsius. It was perfect. It reminds me of, getting out at the end of the school term and like freedom of summer and stuff. So my brain starts going into that mode, and it's, I'm going to Japan next month, and there's so much exciting stuff coming up, and still, making that concerted effort to focus, right? Knowing that it's good and I love the stuff that I'm doing right now, right? It's different from what I've done in the past, and making sure that I can continue that so that it becomes more normal. Kind of like you were saying yesterday, how when we were when I was originally setting up my business, it was just something I fit in kind of in the cracks between everything else that was the priority. But now that this is my priority, I have to remember how to do it full time rather than just kind of, I've got 5 minutes, let me do a little thing. It's like, no, I've got 5 hours or 8 hours or, so
5 hours of like heavy concentration work, but like, especially if you're going to do that, bringing that in. I did the math on 50 contacts a day, and so that's 10 per hour, or 1 every 6 minutes, which is fairly intense. Now, if you're going for 100, that'd be 1 every 3 minutes. So
if you're doing it in that amount of time,
right,
yeah.
if you're doing it that amount of time. And so there's probably ways that, you know, you can leverage high amounts of
Copy
stuff.
paste, baby.
Or you know, other approaches too. But what are you specifically going to do to structure afternoons so it's not quite so crazy for you?
Let's see. So today, I think it's going to be figuring out something that I can still do in that between lunch and when my, just kind of mini lesson happens in Global Republic. Because basically for all of you out there, at noon, we usually go for a walk outside and just talk and have time, and it's good. And then we come back and I have my room at 2:30, which I usually log in at 2:25. So I've got like an hour and a half to 2 hours between our walk and that. And then after that, our boys get home. And although I don't need to do a whole lot, I welcome them back and make sure that, they are, I don't know, something before they go outside to play. And then I have, another maybe until like 4 before I have to like really think about that. And even then it's not that much, but it's enough.
Yeah.
Right. So there's things. And one of the things in my brain is, okay, I have something in 6 hours, which means I have to get ready in 5 hours, which means I have to start thinking about getting ready in 4 hours, which means that, by 3 hours, I have to be doing this, which means I have no time at all. I have to start now or I can do nothing. Like it's that weird, like,
you have to think about it in advance unless you have a schedule and you've already thought about it in advance.
Yes. And so that's kind of what I'm like, okay, so what can I schedule that won't be quite so brain intensive, right? That I can still do and time box that. Because my mornings is, that's when I like, my brain is going.
So here's something that's underutilized, and especially this is for someone who did a lot of on Instagram that I got at a conference, which is reposting content that is quality.
Of your own or other people's?
Other people's content. So all you do is search for cool resources and say, hey, this is cool. I like this, or this thing about it. I mean, add like a short comment about like why it's helpful or something like that. But
that would actually go perfectly well, because the thing that I've been putting together is my resource list of like my top, apps, websites, content providers for personal study. But not everything makes it on that list.
Right. Well, even so, and this is actually, there's someone, if you have extra time to check them out, someone who I think does content marketing brilliantly, which is Kenzo from Love Life Drawing. I've been dissecting his drawing courses as like a hobby, like some of the free courses. He has like a paid community or whatnot. But pretty much everything that's in his free lead magnet course, you find those individual tips, just not organized in a structured course, free. So even everything on your list, like top 100 sources, you could put every single item on that list out individually as a piece of content. You can repost it on Twitter a few times, but people would still want the whole list collected and, maybe some structure in terms of how to use it that's still valuable on top of that. So like there can be quite a bit of overlap here.
That's a good idea, because I have 3 pages double spaced of just links, not even the descriptions of the links, of my top ones, all of which I want to get into this thing. And then, a whole bunch of other ones that are like, well, this one's, an interesting one for that. Or here's another one. I don't need another one. But if you want another one, I have it.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Or I found this one, but then I found another one that's better. Whatever. So, yeah, I think that's something I could do. Because that'll let me have fun on Canva, just making like, here's a cool resource, post things or whatever.
And you can make it minimal. I mean, one, you could search on social media if those resources already have their post and just share their post.
That's even easier.
Yeah. Yeah. With a comment, I liked this about, something specific about that. So like they don't even have to create them all. You can literally retweet, repost, etc. So that could be part of your routine.
See, and this is, I don't usually think about that. I usually think, well, I have to create my own thing with a link to their content explaining how I found it in the history of. No, I don't have to do that. I just repost it.
And especially, and this kind of goes along a little bit with what we were saying yesterday about people tend to engage with you more if you actually engage
with their stuff.
Stuff, right? And so, for instance, the one time I was retweeted by someone much bigger than me when I was like experimenting with Twitter, there's the Huberman podcast. Someone was talking about, I forget what lack of focus or energy habit, and I was applying something I got from the Huberman podcast about neurobiology and all of that, and life hacks. And so so I did that, but I added them in the comment, and so they shared that to their audience, because what I was doing was something they can't do, which is apply their general thing that they put out to an individual people. They can't do that at scale.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really great way to engage with larger brands, is you repost what they post with a specific comment about why you like it that gives them social proof. They'll see that they're added and they can easily like and retweet, etc.
Nice.
And so that is a great strategy that is low content creation and potentially high exposure.
Nice. I will work that into my schedule then.
There you go.
Perfect.
I think that's the business tip of the day.
Business tip of the day.
Business tip of the day. You do not have to create all your own content. You can share other people's content, maybe with a short insight, and especially if you add something that's valuable, validating, it can be thoughtful, but it can be just one thoughtful sentence, and then at them you might get a share and retweet, and so that can be, as you're doing outreach and a marketing plan, you could share them. And sharing other people's value propositions is also a good way to test what offers respond to people, right? You can test the ones that you come up with, but you can also test, you can test your competitors by sharing their stuff. Nice. Even, and see, if people respond to that or not, right? So who knows? There's a lot of different ways you could take that, but you don't have to create all your own content. Again, this is the value of having a volume goal, is so that you can, come up, multiply the number of strategies that you can use and use effectively, and figure out which ones work for you.
Yeah. And
so that eventually hitting that 50 becomes easier. And as you get results, and as you get clients and money and into this, you can hire people to help you find content, share content, etc. So
awesome. I like it. Good business tip. Thank you.
All right. So these keep getting cut off, so we're gonna have to figure out some way to fill time after the official sign off.
Okay.
All right. But until tomorrow, make big changes, one small habit at a time.
All right. Fill the space.
Yeah, maybe we should hum. We should have an outro or something like that.
La, la.
We'll see. There's a lag between the live stream and what we're actually streaming. So when I actually click the end button, it cuts off half of the last sentence.
No.